Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. Well, our first map is really going to talk about the big event we need to be discussing this week, and that is the cold air we've been talking about finally pushing its way toward the east is here. We can see that we have a freeze watch in place for the western half of North Carolina. This also extends throughout parts of the Mid-South, where there's actually a freeze warning and for northern Arkansas and this part of western Tennessee, and the freezing temperatures could get pretty far to the south here. And this has been after a very, very mild start. Now, for many of you on Sunday, we actually saw some wintry mix in northern parts of North Carolina, and this got into Virginia and up toward the Appalachian Mountains. And I went out looking for where that snow possibly could have been. So just thinking about Sunday afternoon and evening, what I'm looking for here are asterisks like these way up here in parts of Maryland. That would represent some snow. A few of you did see some snowflakes, but a lot of you got some pretty cold rain out of this system on Sunday as it came through. If there was snow, it was a little bit farther to the north, and it was relatively brief from what I could see here from the observations. And this is a major change over where we've been since the start of this year. So take a look at this map. Since January 1st through the 12th of March, we were likely having across the state of North Carolina a top 5 warmest start to any year on record. And these records go back to 1893. In fact, so much of the eastern half of the country was very mild, while the west has been so very cold. And since we're talking about snow, I just want to show you, this is the latest snowfall departure map through Sunday. And again, what it really represents here, excuse me, not departure, this is total. I'll show you the departure in a second. What this represents has been this split west to east on the temperatures. Now, I want to put a couple of important things together for you here. While we are, our total snowfall throughout much of North Carolina has been very low, it's only been, we can kind of almost zoom in here and see it, it's only been right on the spine of the Appalachian Mountains where some places have been able to pick up over a foot of snow in just a few high elevation points. But I'd like to take you to a couple other places. Notice in the upper Midwest, northern plains, the headwaters of the Mississippi, this whole area here still has a couple of feet of snow sitting on the ground. And this past weekend, another major atmospheric river event has pushed into the western United States. And take a look. Now we've got places here from the Sierra Nevada mountains all the way to Northern California that have had so far this year between 300 and 400 inches of snow. The upper Colorado Basin, a lot of places in here are sitting anywhere between 80 and 190 inches of snow. And this is just really important for water in the West, although it is way too much. I'm sure you've seen it in the news. You now know, the extreme flooding that's happening throughout the West, especially to California because of all of this. Now, to show it to you another way, this map looks at departure. So this is one I thought I showed you a moment ago, but here it is. Accumulated snowfall departure in inches. So now we can really see the warmth and how it's been reflected in the east. Now, there's a major snowstorm coming for the Hudson Valley early this week. I'll show you that in a few seconds. But our deficits here, because of the lack of snow, we're really here in parts of the Carolinas and Mid-Atlantic, having not really seen any this winter, have really missed out. So we need to take a look if any of this could possibly dip down and get us here over the next 10 to 15 days. Very, very low probability of that happening, of course, but the frosty temperatures are there in the forecast. But again, just take a look at some of these numbers out west. Now remember, this is difference from normal. We have some places that are more than 200 inches above average. Okay, so just kind of imagine what that snowfall looks like throughout the West. Now this past weekend, and this goes to about 8 o'clock on Sunday night. I'm doing this recording 8 o'clock Central Time on Sunday night. We were still watching the rain clear the eastern part of the state, but we did have some very cold rain that moved across, and this began as some stronger storms earlier in the weekend here. All of this was snow, and just in 3 days, the total liquid of the snow that came in here was adding up somewhere between 6 and 10 inches. That's liquid, right? So if you know, melting all of that snow down that's in the Sierra Nevada right now, there's over 100 inches of liquid in it. Okay, so 100 inches of liquid in that snowpack at this point. So we say, where does this put us since last October on the water date to year precipitation ranks? And again, we can see how wet it's been from the west into the upper Midwest and back into the northern plains. But take note, this whole region along the Appalachian Mountains pointing east into central North Carolina, we've been above average in terms of precipitation too. The driest spots have been Florida underneath the big subtropical ridge, and also here in the plains, an area that desperately needs moisture, especially for this winter wheat crop. So the last thing I want to show you here is what the latest drought monitor looks like. Now, what I've got actually here is the drought monitor from back in December, and the latest one looks like this. So that I love this slider tool. It's just on the drought monitor. If you want to see the current map, it's always the front thing that shows up. There it is. That's the current drought monitor. And then what you can do is you can come over here to maps. What I did was I went to comparison slider. And I'm going to leave this one as March 7th, but I'm going to take this one all the way back again. I don't know. Let's go to December the 6th. So now when you slide it over, you can see how the drought's changed. And I want you to note that the drought stayed anchored in the Central Plains. See that? Even though there's a bunch of snow sitting on top of this now. But watch the Central Valley of California. Wiped out. Just incredible to see that. So what do we have going on right now? Well, can I start you off pretty far on the west? Do you see this? This right here, way off the west coast, is the next major atmospheric river event that's going to slam into California on the 14th. What we've got right now, though, on Monday, is this shortwave trough with a subtropical branch to the south of it. And it's going to initiate a big system to roll up the east coast. Now, for us in North Carolina, it's already passed. We're going to see dry conditions till the end of this week. Our biggest concern is a frost. But we do see a pretty sizable system running up the coast. So let's get up to where present is. So here we go. Let's start this Monday morning about 8 o'clock. Deep low going right over the top of Chicago. All that rain you just saw there, that was on Sunday night. And this is the system curling into New England. Look at that guy right there. Big nor'easter. I think it's the first one of the year. And it was a hybrid like Miller B type system, one that comes out of the Midwest and then turns north. And this system is going to be very challenging to forecast the rain snow line. Now you're looking at the NAM, and this goes out to early in the morning on Tuesday saying, wow, this is going to clobber New York City. I think this is going to be some wet, sloppy conditions here with some snow, but not a big snowfall. The big snows are going to be farther in the interior in the Hudson Valley. But I want to point out that on the back side of this, swirling around through the Appalachian Mountains, we could add some snow more into Virginia and West Virginia than North Carolina, but there's some snow coming in through here. Now, look at this. That's the next massive event coming into California. 4 a.m. Tuesday morning, throughout the entire day on Tuesday, while that system curls up here, and remember, we're dry through this, monster system clobbering California. Now, there are some changes in the pattern I want you to take note of. The jet stream's been shifted way toward the equator, and it's extended. It's expected to retract over the next 15 days. And that signal right there is also why we expect from now through the middle part of March for there to be some colder air. To show you that, I'm going to play for you the trough ridge pattern from now through the end of March. So when I click play on this, what we're watching for these deeper troughs to come through. And so you can see another one sliding through here around the 18th, 19th, and 20th. There's another one that follows that. See this? And this is just this push for more steady, cooler conditions coming into the out of the western United States and pushing east with time. So that's what we're looking out for. Now, the second major system coming through us, notice this is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's actually our next big push at precip. Most of this next week is dry. So if you look here over the next 7 days, you see that the chance of really being wetter than average is pretty limited. And remember, what you've got here in the forecast, because I record these on Sunday night, this is actually including the rainfall that we got on Sunday. So as you kind of just click through this, this is more representative of what the next week is going to be. Overall, drier until we get into next weekend. That's when the precipitation comes through. But as we look out there fully into week 2, so let me just stop it out there for you, right out here. This is now next Sunday all the way through the 26th of March. That's the time we're looking at, okay? Now we see above average precipitation coming through because of the jet stream delivering that cooler air farther to the east, shoving the jet stream farther to the south, and setting us up for wetter conditions. Now, to see all that play out, let me just start you here early in the morning on Monday and watch the precip clear. You're going to see the big nor'easter hit New England right there. This is going through the day on Monday into early Tuesday morning. Now, that's when we got some cooler air on the backside of this. But our temperatures are going to try to moderate over what they were on Sunday during this time period, but still cooler air. Next big system, it's California. But for us in North Carolina, we spend Wednesday, Thursday, and even part of Friday with high pressure. See the high pressure cell sitting here? That protects us. You notice there's another big system coming through the Midwest late this week. Let me rock you back and forth. What I need you to know is several of these systems combine to put a bunch of snow in the upper Midwest northern plains. Heavy rains in the eastern Corn Belt. Heavy rains here in the Mid-South all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. This has eliminated any worry that I've been having for the last several weeks about the persistence of last fall's drought sitting in this area. That is out. So what we end up getting out of this pattern is our next chance at rain. Look at this. Here it is, Friday morning, Friday midday, Friday evening, pulling through to early Saturday. So it's a Friday, Saturday precipitation event for us in North Carolina, and it's not cold enough for snow at this point. Our frost problem is early this week. All right? Now, if I keep playing, Monday and Tuesday of the following week, see another big Midwestern storm, guess what? It tries to get to us by Wednesday, Thursday of the following week. This is out there the 22nd, 23rd, 24th. So let's go ahead and add all this up. Now remember, this you see here, this was on Sunday. This was Sunday's precip. We don't have much more that adds until, there it is. That's the system that comes through, watch, Friday morning, afternoon, and evening, Saturday. So we're looking at between now and next Sunday, maybe an additional 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch of precip. Some local areas will get more depending on the intensity of the system, but because it's still 6 days away from when I'm recording this, we don't fully know the intensity. I just want you to know the timing so that you're aware when the next precip event comes through. It again is on Friday, getting into Saturday. Okay, snowfall. Remember, this was what the models were trying to forecast for us on Sunday. Not much happened here, though. But take a look at the size of this Hudson Valley system here. That's through Wednesday. That's a monster snowstorm up there. It's going to be difficult to hit the exact amounts, but pretty big. So just want to let you know, up that I-95 corridor, just keep an eye of it. Just to the west of it, some heavy snows. Now, what I hit on at the beginning is our big risk right now. Whoops, let's shrink that up. This is showing everywhere in gray where there's the risk of a frost in the next 7 days. And after a very early start to spring, first thing we started off here with was looking at those temperatures. We're now seeing this colder air advect or move to the east, and that's bringing these frosty temperatures pretty far south. Now, remember, you can always use the forecasting tools that I've built for you to figure out when these cold temperatures are going to be there. But I just want to show you again, this is Monday morning's minimum temperatures. This is now Tuesday. So that white line is the frost line on Tuesday. This is on Wednesday. So that's going to be the cold morning. So Tuesday into Wednesday, that's when we've got the coldest temperatures in place. Going into Thursday, there's some moderation. Going into Friday, we start to moderate. Remember, this is ahead of the next rainfall event. And as I said, after this one comes through, we don't see nearly as cold of air coming through, which means we have a big frost coming through the middle of this week for most of North and South Carolina and everywhere north of it. Now, how long does this cooler air hang around? Because it's kind of coming in these waves. And notice, here's the next one. Well, if we just look at the European model for guidance, there's some colder air that's in place all the way out there to like the 20th, 21st, which means we're going to officially start spring with some colder air across much of the country. But you'll notice that the colder air pushes toward us through that 3rd week of March, but at the end of March begins to relent. See that? So this is a mid-March freeze event we're talking about right now, and there is the potential for some more colder air lingering until we get toward the end of this month. We just need to stay on top of this, okay? Keep a very close eye on those temperatures. What does the new long-range forecast look like? This is the week 3, week 4 outlook just released by the CPC on Friday. And again, we've got the colder bias around through much of the rest of March, although I think it's going to start to really move out a bit once we get here toward the very end of March, but definitely wetter than normal according to the model. On the temperature side of it, this is the European model forecast all the way through April 20th. I think it's got some persistence bias in it, but I want you to be aware that at this point, the models are attempting to keep the coldest spot on the planet compared to normal, especially in the northern hemisphere, kind of anchored throughout the lower 48 of the United States. Again, that's compared to normal. So I'll show you what I mean here in a few moments. So we're not done with this cooler weather right away after we get through this week. On the precip side of it, though, things are looking quite wet in the southeast, which means we could be seeing a lot of thunderstorm activity here, more severe weather pushing through this area. I want to show you one last forecast of this long range before we really look longer range, and it's from the CFS V2, the Climate Forecasting System version 2. Now you notice that, I don't have to really blow these up. See the cooler air coming through here? The model's attempting from the 26th through the 1st to bring in some more mild air, but again, it's got another shot at cooler air from the 2nd through the 8th. That's something we just got to be on the lookout for. No full breakover to really, really warm conditions like we started off this year doing. And one of the big reasons for that, La Nina has completely let go of the rains. The MJO jumped way out into the West Pacific, something that's difficult for the MJO to do if there's a strong La Nina. But we think that this could make another circle back around in this area, which is why this pattern seems to be a bit on repeat going through the rest of the month of March. But La Nina is done. I mean, it's out. And CPC declared it last week. We've been talking about, about a month and a half, but it's just completely vanished. What we're left with is colder water in through here with warmer water out in the North Pacific. And you go, why do you keep talking about the Pacific rather than the Atlantic? This is your setup right now. When we get into spring and summer, oh yeah, we'll be talking about the Atlantic all the time, but our setup is here. And the fact that there's cold water along the west coast and warm water here is lending toward a negative PDO signal. And I want to show you something. If you look historically, April and May at the PDO signal, when it's negative, it tends to be, I know the colors may look like this, but it tends to be colder across the west and not such a strong signal for us, which means the West, which we do compete with for some crops and forestry industry, okay, is going to look like a cold and soggy spring. Where is it going to be mild? Well, for cotton growers, probably a big start to a mild spring in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. Come back down here into the lower Mississippi River Valley, more mild. Now, again, this is a correlation map. So this is a negative correlation. So if the PDO is negative, these colors mean warm, these mean cool. North Carolina, the correlation is so small we don't even use it. All right? But we do know this. NOAA's latest forecast, or the CPC's latest forecast, says, hey, we're in full INSO-neutral conditions, and we totally agree with that, right? Full INSO-neutral conditions out there through spring, but possibly by July, August, September, El Nino returning. And that is pretty consistent. The Australians agree with that. The European model agrees with that. A lot of consensus here that by summer we'll be talking about El Nino. Now, what that might mean is this. I am concerned about this. June through September, precipitation correlation. Now remember, these colors mean drier. These mean wetter. So notice wetter in the plains, wetter in the Midwest, wetter in the mountains. But do you see where the drier risks are going to be? The reason for this is normally the Bermuda High is right in through here. It may extend farther to the east and set up shop maybe somewhere closer to this. So what that tends to do is push moisture into these areas. But we could be, and I just want you to be aware of this, running the risk of a drier summer if El Nino dominates by midsummer and pushes the Bermuda High toward us in the Carolinas. Remember, this is all speculative, but I'm just telling you what I'm looking at this point in the year. All right? But that's right. La Nina out, El Nino in. Okay, let's dial this back a little bit, come back to the whole planet, but just the next 10 days. A couple things I want to point out. Very wet on the safrinha crop in northern Brazil. So they got the safrinha in. It's going to have tons of rain on it. This is going to be a big push for the safrinha. You then see that there's still a hole down here in Argentina where it is drier, but rains have attempted to fill this in. There's been some scattered storms, even though the heat has really been on in Argentina, continuing to further degrade that crop. I also want you to note that in Europe, we are expecting better rains in the British Isles and France and Germany. And this is an area that had been in drought, although it's drier over toward the Black Sea. And it's going to be very hot and dry in Australia. If you just look at the temperatures there, this is again like summertime here. Very, very hot and throughout parts of Australia. But note, much of Asia, much of Europe, Africa. Look at the southern part down here of South America and Argentina, hot. As I told you earlier, the coldest place compared to normal right now is anchored right in through here as all this colder air comes out of the Canadian prairie, sets up in the Midwest, and pushes over toward us in the Carolinas in the next 10 days. So that's our big risk right now. Okay, I'm going to leave you off there. I appreciate your attention. Have a great week, and we'll talk again next week. Thanks.